children. And I said to them, they'll never go through what I had to go through as a child because we lived in poverty. We didn't have much. We lost our father at a very young age, and he was the breadwinner in our family. And so my family had to my mother had to learn to rebuild. She had to learn to become the head of the household, where she was a housewife. And so we had to grow up in poverty. And in my lineage, and I wanted to change this in my lineage, and I wanted to be the driving force in my journey, and I wanted to create a legacy of removing poverty from my bloodline. That is my motivational factor. Growing up without the necessities every child should have because our father died. But that's another story, because I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And that's what you are too. You are not a victim, you are a survivor. There's a big difference, because a survivor is either sink or swim. And when you get to that point, you learn to swim. You learn to create balance in your life. And it's about learning to swim, learning to tread water, learning to stay afloat, learning to do the things that you have to do to become whole in your success process. And that's not forgetting. And the biggest part of that is not forgetting about you. You're building this brick by brick, but in the process, you're going to continue to nurture who you are as a human being. You are not a robot. You are not a machine. You are a human being, and you will continue to act as such. And that's what you have to tell yourself. Step by step, relationships are built like a brick and mortar buildings, brick by brick, person by person, relationship by relationship, whether that relationship is personal or whether it's business. You need all of that. You can't just say, okay, my only relationship is working relationships. I don't want any other kind of people in my life. Then you're going to have a problem, because you're going to burn out. And when you need people to talk to, you're not going to have that group. It cannot be about business. Now it's time to move to self-love and successful women or men. Okay, so let's start with our tips. First, number one, you got to love your me time. Remove work and figure out what makes you happy and what does not. And focus on what does not, and focus on removing the things that don't make you happy from your life. Focus on how to remove them in the best way. Number two, remember you have a life with your mate and a life without your mate. The idea is how to create balance. It will keep the relationship fresh for years to come. These are for people that are in relationships, not for people that, it's not just for people that are not in relationships. It's for people, today is for people in relationships too. Because you can always rebuild a relationship if the two people in the relationship want to get in and do the work. Okay? Number three, the green-eyed devil has to stay away. Jealousy will ruin it every single time. When I say the green-eyed jealous, the green-eyed devil, that means accusing people. That means tearing people down just so that you can stay secure and feel secure. And if you do it at home, you'll do it at work. You'll become jealous of other people's success at work. You'll become jealous of other people's success in business, and you'll start to destroy them. And that's the road to self-sabotage, because in the end, all roads are gonna lead back to you. If you do wrong, wrong will follow you. I don't care who you are and what you're doing in life. It may take 25, 30 years for it to catch up to you. There's people that have committed crimes. 25 years later, they were caught. They were caught because they didn't have the technology yesterday that they have today. So remember, if you do wrong, wrong will follow you. So if the green-eyed devil is controlling you, you need to check that. You need to figure out how to get that out of you in the fastest way possible, because that will end you. That will ruin you. That will ruin any relationship you have. Business, personal, it will. Trust me. Number 4, toxic relationships. And now this is a big one. I really had to think about it. Toxic people tend to target powerful people. Toxic people, they are dream stealers. When you stop dreaming, you stop doing. And that's something that you should really take this part to heart, because success is a never-ending story. And it was never, ever, never meant to feel comfortable. Toxic people feast on people until you have nothing left to give, until you are empty, emotionally or financially. Always remember that. You have people that just set out to target successful people. It's okay to want to be in a relationship with someone that's successful, but it should be naturally. You shouldn't wake up and say, I'm going to marry a basketball player. I'm going to marry a football player. I'm going to marry somebody on Wall Street, or pick up a magazine and start stalking someone and say, this person right here I'm going to marry. Because why? You're after their money. You're after their standing in the community. You're not after just really loving that person. And that's what successful people have to remember. You have to get out of this, or don't even get in it. If you're in something like this, or even if you're not, don't even let yourself be pulled into that arena. Don't. You want to have a person in life that's fulfilling to you on all levels. If you're left feeling uncomfortable every time you see a person and you're attracted to them physically, continue to explore your inner feelings and ask yourself why, and go with your gut feeling. But don't punish people because you've had a bad relationship and you've got baggage. And next thing you know, your baggage gets heavier and heavier until you can't even pick the bag up anymore in the suitcase, because you never emptied it. You never got rid of the old baggage. Drop the emotional baggage. Seek help. If the problem is bigger than you, there's nothing wrong with needing and seeking professional help. But keep toxic people away from you, and maybe you won't have to deal with the baggage. Just think about that. If a person comes to you and you don't feel comfortable, and that person, every time you're forcing yourself to go on a date and you have this funny feeling every time, that person is not for you, and you got to move away. You got to. And another thing about that, many successful people are blinded by sex. You cannot save the world, but you are definitely in control of your life. Stop dragging in wounded birds and trying to fix someone who doesn't want to come full circle and meet you halfway. You shouldn't be in the bed with people just for sex. I mean, we're all human beings. Sometimes you may be attracted to someone, but if you're making a habit of jumping in and jumping out of bed with people for sex with no real true meaning, you're going to burn out. You're not going to really have the fulfillment that a human being was meant to have in life. You're not going to have that. What you're going to do is have empty encounters. And next thing you know, people are getting in your bed, getting out your bed. You don't even remember half the people's names because you have no real value. It's fun at first, and then it gets to be demeaning to you as a human being. So too much of anything is not good, and that's why you have to have balance. And so you can't run and just give yourself to people and have no real value and expect to be successful. It doesn't work like that, because you're going to be lacking somewhere, and it may be in your professional life that you're trying so hard to build, and that's not what you want. You have to compromise. Another thing too, number 6, if you have to compromise and sacrifice your belief system to be with someone, you need to take a closer look at yourself and ask yourself why. It's okay to date casually until you find the right one. Let's get real. You better get a collection or something to pleasure yourself instead of just giving yourself away. You had better find some kind of way to release this energy in a positive way rather than destroying yourself as a person, and then you begin to plant seeds of doubt in your ecosystem as a human being. And that's the last thing that you need to be doing, because then after that comes self-loathing. And then after self-loathing comes destruction. So instead of you playing with it and fooling with it, don't even deal with it. Don't even let that come into your life. That shouldn't even be anything that you value in your ecosystem as a human being. You've got to break the habit of self-sabotaging relationships. So don't do that. Stop self-sabotaging yourself and get into a deeper meaning of loving yourself. It's not always have to be wrapped up in sex with someone and it's not even meaningful. And what would even happen if when you met the right person and you had all these empty encounters and then you ended up with a disease you couldn't get rid of? Then what would you do? And then you met the most beautiful person in the world and it was the person for you. That person made it all make sense. But then you've destroyed yourself. So before you get to this, don't even play with it. Don't. Next thing, credit score is important. You want the person you're looking for to have it all. When you have nothing to bring to the table, you want them to have an 800 credit score and you have a 500. If you want to build together, bring something to the table. Oh, yes, you definitely need to be bringing something to the table, but you don't need to be the only one. Okay. And you don't need to, some people go through problems. Some things happen. We're living in a pandemic. So things happen. So don't judge too harshly, but look at if a person tells you, okay, I went through this and so this is not the best for me, we can be understanding about that. But then look around at their life, and if everything is out of order and in disarray, then that's the way that person is. They're just out of order, and they haven't found a way to bring everything back into order. But there's another side to it. You can always help a person through as long as you're not giving too much of yourself. They'll say, have you heard the saying that behind every good woman, there's a good man, and behind every good man, there's a good woman. Okay? But make sure your good woman or good person is someone that's willing to build with you and won't leave it all up to you, where you're the only one carrying the weight. That's the key. Make sure that the person that you choose for your life to build with is not making it as if you're the one carrying all the weight. Can I get an amen on that one? For real. Yes. So now that we got the applause on that one out the way, let's go to our next one. And so one of the things that we want you to do is to work on your credit scores. And that's really important. That credit score is so important. So one of the things that you can do to become actionable is to use apps. And maybe you don't have the money. Like we said, this is a pandemic, so we got a lot of restructuring to do. We got to figure out what the new normal is. So one thing that you can do is you can go to Credit Karma, and you can get your free credit report and look at your report and start working on it. And look at what you want to accomplish for the future with a solid credit profile by building one. You can always build, but you have to wake up and decide that you want to. And you have to make sure that this is necessary, that you recognize that this is a necessary step for you to be successful. Because what happens when you're trying to literally close a deal and you don't have the working capital, and the next thing you know, you go to the bank and they say, well, we can't lend you any money. You've got the contract, but your credit history is so reckless that we don't feel that we can give you this. But on the other hand, look at it like this. You've been working on your credit. You've been working hard. You've been using Credit Karma. Every day you wake up, you look at your credit, and you're building. And then next thing you know, you get a credit score. You at 700, 750, 800. And then you've been building. And then a contract drops in your hand, in your lap, and you need working capital. You go to the bank and they say, wow, this person's responsible, and we want to help them build. We want to help them become part of their financial network because this person is building and we want in. Then next thing you know, the banks want to be your partner. You're building solid relationships. And that's why I told you about relationships. Building your relationships is very important. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about that. We'll go deeper in that maybe on another one. You want to accept who you are with no apologies. You want to be strong in your belief system, centered around being humble and being strong. You want to be able to do that. You don't want to be a narcissist. You don't want to be like, take it or leave it. This is who I am. But if you know you're building and you really are being the best person that you can be, that you know how to be, and when you ask yourself at the end of the day, do I treat people the way I want to be treated, and be honest about it, you don't have to make apologies for who you are. And so if you have to, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't mean to sit this way. I didn't mean to cough that way. I didn't mean to comb my hair that way. Then what does that say about you? What is that? You're constantly making apologies of who you are. And then you're giving this person all your power and you're losing your self-love. This is the time for you to say, well, Listen, these are basic. If you don't like the way I cough, and you don't like the way I talk, and you don't like the way that I eat, and you don't like the way I do it, maybe you're just not the person for me. Maybe you're not. If you know that you're eating the way you should be eating, or you're